Welcome to the Sweaty Health Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about all the things you can do to boost your immune system. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, we'll get in depth on that in a second, but we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to start by addressing some sort of myth or popular truth that's not actually true, okay? So today, we're talking about immune system with COVID-19 and all the issues surrounding it. You know, all you hear in the news is about the vaccines coming out soon, what medications are going to work to address it. Well, that doesn't help me, Scott. That doesn't help you because we have no control over that. We're going to focus on this podcast to only look at things that we can control. We had doctors on a few episodes ago. They kind of informed us, got us educated on the ins and outs of COVID-19 and you know, what it's all about and what they're doing to address it. But we want to focus more on our own personal health and what we can do in our lifestyle through our diet, exercise, and habits to be better off. So let's start with a myth or something that's commonly believed to be true that we're going to throw a little curveball at you. All right. So supplements boost your immune system. This is true, right? Well,
I don't know about that. Yeah. So I think when it comes to society right now, people want quick results, right?
Yep.
So that's when supplements started becoming popular, is that quick results. Oh, take this supplement and you get your result. And, you know, obviously now there's a pandemic going on and people want to make sure their immune systems are strong so they can fight the virus. And there's tons of supplements out there that claim that they can
make big promises,
make a big promise that it will boost your immune system. So how do we feel about that, Ross?
Well, listen, we're going to narrow it down to maybe three different bullet points today on how we can boost our immune system. And the first thing you have to understand is that we're not bashing supplements. We're not necessarily against supplements, but they don't boost your immune system. The only way to truly boost your immune system is to pay attention to what you're doing to this, right? To what you're doing to your body. And the first thing we're going to address is nutrition. So on the most basic platform, we want to pay attention to what we're eating. And what we should be eating should be, as we've said before, 80 to 90% whole foods prepared either in your own kitchen or prepared properly. It doesn't have to be organic, but has to be real food. And it has to be balanced toward your body. You know, some people feel better eating lower carbs. Some people feel better eating higher fat. You can make it relative to your system, but the most important thing is to put foods into your body and into your gut that you do not react to, because that reaction is inflammation. If you're getting bloated, overly gassy, you're having irregular or explosive bowel movements, all these things are signs that something's wrong. So we want to focus on foods that don't elicit these reactions. And, you know, we do have a couple of those foods.
So when it comes to nutrition, I know for Ross and I as nutritionists, we don't really try and push any sort of trend or fatty diets. That's not what we are about, because we know that when it comes to eating whole, organic, colorful foods, that's really what makes someone healthy, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the easiest things is just look at your diet and assess, do you have dark leafy greens in your diet every single day? It's so simple. I mean, just having one salad a day will put your immune system and your body in a better position, because you're going to get some of those vitamins and minerals directly from the food, their most bioavailable source. And bioavailability, for anyone who doesn't know, just means how well your body breaks down and absorbs. Certain things are done better than others. Some supplements have good bioavailability, but a lot of them don't have great bioavailability, and we get it better through just eating our diet. And we get a lot of other stuff. It's not isolated to just one thing.
So what we're trying to say is it's not that supplements are bad for you. It's just that we would rather eat these things because it's more bioavailable and our body will absorb them better than taking a supplement or a pill, right?
Well, a great example is something like turmeric, which we know is a proven anti-inflammatory food. It's like a root. You grind it up. You could put it in shakes or juice it, or
You
get
could
it as a
stick
dry
that on your
spice.
chicken. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is like Samantha and I always, we put it on our chicken, we put it on our fish, we put it on a lot of different meats that we eat. And that's how we get our turmeric in. And what does turmeric do for you?
It's just it's kind of just an anti-inflammatory. It kind of puts the flame out in your body. I know that sounds salesy and cheesy, but the mechanism of it I can't explain on the molecular level. But we understand that it's one of those things that just suppresses like the body's just normal reaction to everything that's going on.
Exactly.
But you know, it should be accompanied with black pepper. So if you make, I always love Indian spice food. So I'll put together like turmeric, cumin, curry, black pepper. Now I add sea salt. I had a client from years back, and he was from India, and he says that's the one thing they don't use a lot of is salt in their food, which I found really interesting. But I added in there. I like sea salt, and it's good.
Yeah.
Sea salt's very good, and we'll talk later about quality of some of other foods. But yeah, you just add that in there, and you can make it as a rub for your chicken or your fish. Or like we said, you could even put it inside a shake. You got to think outside the box a little bit. And it's not that you couldn't supplement turmeric in the pill form, but look to put it in the diet first. Is it in the diet? Is it present in the diet? And then you can go and say, well, am I missing anything? And then you can go into supplementing it.
So before you said, we talked about dark leafy greens, and you said if you had a salad, it'll help right there. That's one thing that can kind of help you bring those leafy greens into your day. Now, people have salads all the time. What kind of lettuce, what kind of salad are we talking about?
Well, we're not talking about iceberg lettuce, like the straight up white. That can be in there, but that can't be the base of the salad. That's basically water. That's not giving you any nutrients. Dark leafy greens are things like different variations of romaine, red romaine, traditional romaine, baby spinach, baby kale, regular kale, the real hardy kale, which you actually, you know, we talk about how to prepare foods. And it is good to eat maybe half your vegetables raw, but it's also good to steam or lightly cook some of your vegetables. It actually increases bioavailability and makes it more nutritious for your body.
So when it comes to kale, Sam and I also, we do a cooked kale salad. So we do like a warm kale salad. We'll chop up the kale, cook it steam it in a skillet, and we'll add like the rest of the fixins, which I love saying, the fixins, on top of the salad. So we'll do it like that. So we got kale, we got spinach. How do you feel? How about arugula?
Arugula is great. Love it.
Love it as well. I guess those are our main three that I like to incorporate. What else? Is there anything else?
You know, we didn't even I didn't even put this in my bullet points, but now I'm thinking about salads, and I'm thinking about one of the best things for your health is actually apple cider vinegar. If you can work a little bit of that into your salad as your salad dressing with olive oil, a little splash of apple cider vinegar, you mix that up. I mean, apple cider vinegar is one of these really fantastic. I mean, you could give it the label superfood. It has to be consumed the right way, and you can't overconsume it. And I would never recommend you just take a tablespoon and throw it down. It's way too acidic for your body.
That's definitely one of those trends and fads that were out there is like, let me have a shot of apple cider vinegar every single morning.
Perfect
so
example.
Saying, let's try not to take some shots with apple cider vinegar. Let's actually just like eat it and use it as a part of our meals.
Yes. I mean, we were talking about different topics before this podcast, and one of the topics we were discussing actually had to do with apple cider vinegar and how people use it improperly. And there's a lot of myths about it. But working it into a salad dressing, that's perfect. You're eating it with the meal. It's not overwhelming to your system. So that's actually a great example. And it's antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. It's anti-anything bad for your body.
Sure.
And it's going to, keep those blood sugars in check. It's going to do a lot of great things.
Well, the one thing we're saying about it is that it's not like a cure for something. It's not a superpower. Once you drink it and you're going to be you're going to burn fat. You're going to, be completely immune. We're saying if you accompany all these things together, that will help boost your metabolism. So whenever you see these trends and fads of doing these one thing, that it will help all the other things, it's not true. That won't happen.
It's the bigger picture. We're kind of going after the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is just start to eat more real foods. And I am not an advocate for a vegan diet. I'm not an advocate for carnivore or keto. I'm an advocate for the diet that works best for you, that you feel best. So if you find enlightenment in one of those diets, that's great. God bless you. I can't argue with your experience. But what I can say is there are ways you assess your body. And like I spoke before, it really comes down to how is your gut functioning? And, one of the best foods for your gut, because what do we mean by that? We mean your microbiome. Ooh, big word. Just basically means the gut bacteria. Yes, we have good bacteria in our body. There's actually more bacterial cells in our body than there are of our own cells in the body. So if our gut's not functioning, those little suckers can actually almost control us. And I know I've expressed to you many times, I'm very sensitive to certain foods. And this is not me being a hypochondriac. This is me having a lifetime of, I've had asthma and autoimmune disease, and I changed my diet, and I'm not going to say I cured it, but I have no asthma anymore.
But you still understand how to relate and how to change, and you have an effect, you know what it was. And what Ross is saying is, we hear gut health all the time. What is that? We talk about microbiome, and he's talking about sensitivities, and he feels one thing. What we're saying is, before your bowel movements, when things happen super quickly, that's an effect of what you possibly maybe ate. If you're bloated, that's an effect of your gut health. So these are all things that encompass what gut health is. So when you start to think about your day in and day out of when you're eating, and you're having some form of effect, think to yourself, wait, maybe I am having a gut health problem, right?
Yeah. And what can I do to either restrict or add in certain things to help this situation? And the things you want to add in would be some of what we're talking about, some good quality plant foods and certain types of fiber found from nuts, seeds, even some levels of grains. But also, we didn't even talk about fermented foods. Mm-hmm. So fermented foods are basically living foods that have bacteria growing on them.
The good bacteria.
And good bacteria, probiotics, right? And my favorite, totally, 100%, fermented red cabbage. If you know anything about me on Instagram, I probably have 7 posts on fermented red cabbage. I'm a little obsessed with it. It's by far my favorite. And it just gives your body a nice little dose of a super healthy cruciferous vegetable with the bacteria. And if you are one of those people, as I am, that has a little trouble with cruciferous vegetables, once they're fermented, it's fine. There's no issue. It's almost like it's partially broken down. So
you have red cabbage. How would you eat it? Let's make it realistic, because how are people people aren't going to take it out of the jar like us and maybe take a sip of that sauerkraut
I haven't done that yet.
I've done it, and I kind of like it. But
okay. Yeah.
We talk about making salads. So Sam and we always have our ruby red cabbage or our sauerkraut, and we'll put it on top of our salad.
Yeah.
That's something we do. What else? What do you do? How do you get that in your diet?
So I incorporate basically 2 ways. And one way is kind of boring. It's just throwing it on top of a salad. I find it works good with a spring mix and, and just some basic type of protein on there, whether it's a grilled chicken or salmon, pretty plain and boring that way. But the way I really like to incorporate it is when I have a little bit of my grass-fed beef, right? and I make like a little burger patty, put an avocado on top of it, slices of orange on the side. It's always good to have vitamin C when you have your grass-fed beef. I'll throw a big slap of that fermented red cabbage just as like a little side dish and just eat it straight like that. And I find that it just works beautifully. Sometimes I'll put it on top of the burger. One of the big keys with fermented foods, and I'm not sure everyone understands this, so this is your public service announcement right now. Don't heat up fermented foods. They have to be raw, and you have to consume them cold, room temperature.
So you're talking about the
Yeah.
sauerkraut that everyone loves on their hot dogs that is heated up. Does the opposite effect of what it really should be doing.
Well, listen, most of that, if you're getting it from conventional brands, it's already been poisoned by the earth from pesticides. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
No, there's still obviously benefits. It's still sauerkraut. It's still going to have a nutrient density to it, but it's not going to have the active live probiotics in it. That's going to be destroyed once you cook it. So, that we talked about supplements. That's another thing with supplements is if you're going to supplement probiotics, they have to come in like cold packaging. You have to keep them in your fridge. Even kombucha, we love kombucha. Kombucha has to be cold, and then you drink it. You can't. Yeah. It doesn't do well once it's heated up. So.
Okay. So we're talking about dark leafy greens, whole foods, fermented foods, some anti-inflammatory spices like turmeric. Okay, so we're talking about nutrition and gut health. Gut health kind of goes with nutrition because if you're eating all these types of things, hopefully your gut health is on the mend and doing really well. Now, when it comes to boosting our immune system, what else do we need?
So if we have the first leg of this is nutrition, the second has to be exercise. It has to be movement. Okay. And we think it's so easy to get so detailed, but let's keep it as simple as possible and say there's maybe 3 or 4 basic legs to that table, right? And it would be, your basic strength work, your basic cardio work, your trivial movement throughout the course of the day. And this idea of mobility and breath work, right, together. So we'll start with mobility and breath. And this is something great to do for anyone. You can relate to yoga, right? What is essentially yoga? Yoga is working, people like to say stretching, but it's really more of mobility because there is a resistance element to it. So if you're doing,
for anyone that doesn't understand what mobility is, it's different from stretching, right? It's how you can actively move, right? So if I was stretching Ross's hamstring right now, I can push his leg further than he could bring it up himself. So mobility for him is how far he can bring it up himself actively, right? Passively, I could push it further. So what yoga does and what a lot of other, I would guess, movements, kind of similar to functional range conditioning, if you want to check that out, helps with mobility, increases the active range of motion that you have for yourself. Now, what does that mean and why is that good? Well, if we have active range of motion for a longer period of time, you're going to be moving freely, you're going to be strong within a certain range of motion, and it decreases risk of injury, right? And it also increases power output, so strength, right? So when we talk about yoga or mobility, then we talk about breath work and how important breath work is. Now, we breathe all day, every day for the rest of our entire lives. So I think that's why breath work is so important. If you do not know how to breathe the right way, you're already starting off on the wrong foot, right? So when we talk about taking a deep breath, most of the time, if you're watching this right now, if I take a deep breath with my chest, you're going to see people's shoulders raised, their chest raised. That's not what we're talking about. We need to now learn how to diaphragmatic breathe into that belly and breathe through our nose, exhale through our mouth, vice versa. By doing these sort of techniques, it does so many other things. It helps with recovery, bringing our heart rate down faster, right? It builds more oxygen throughout our body, right? It gets the oxygen to the muscles that are needed faster, right? And it also helps us de-stress or maybe fall asleep a quicker way, right? These are all things that it starts with breathing. And in terms of exercise, it starts with mobility. These are the foundational things that you need to start working on when it comes to movement.
That's very well said. I'm reading a fantastic book right now on specifically breathing for all different types of modalities. So breathing for endurance work, strength work, meditation. And it's very interesting because you brought up, like, we always breathe through our chest. These are essentially secondary breathing muscles that we use as primary. So most of the time, okay, maybe when you're doing heavy strength work, you want that vertical breath. You want to incorporate everything possible when you're exercising really hard. But most of the time, we should be doing diaphragmatic breathing, which just basically inhale, your belly expands, exhale, the belly draws in.
So what Ross
simple way.
What Ross is saying is, if you are a chest breather or a mouth breather, for say, when you're sleeping or when you're working out, essentially imagine you popped a tire on the highway and you put the donut in the back of the trunk on your car, and you just left it on for the rest of the life of that car, right? For another 3-4 years. And you only had the donut, but you didn't fix that regular tire.
Yeah.
So imagine going through life with that donut on your car, and it's not going to work the right way. It's not going to be proper. You can't go on long trips. You're not going to be able to go over speed bumps. You're not going to be able to make the right turns. Whatever it is, you are using a secondary way of breathing. So that's why diaphragmatic breathing and belly breathing is important, because it helps you. It makes it you as efficient and healthy as possible, right?
Yeah, and it's perfect analogy because it's going to throw off your balance, right? It's going to throw off your alignment. It's going to throw off your performance. And if you don't have the right breath work, it's going to do all three of those.
So let's talk about it right now, because we are in a quarantine, and I can almost guarantee that our daily sitting habits have probably increased, right? Because we're at home and we can't really go anywhere. The movement has probably dropped. So I'm sitting right now. Ross is standing. Let's talk about why it's important to stand a little bit more than to sit, especially if you're someone who's working on a computer or, working from home.
From my perspective, my own personal story is that, and I've said before on this podcast, so forgive me telling the story again, but we're trainers. We walk 3 to 5 miles a day just on the gym floor. We don't have a gym right now. So we're finding ourselves, myself, you, and others we've spoken to, that, we have to really think about what's going on because our baseline is very active. And I noticed in the first week, I was falling into this rut where my energy was just so low. And it's actually because I had a lack of movement. It wasn't because I was moving too much.
People
don't. It's a weird
concept. Yeah. A phenomenon. I mean, think about it. Okay. And we're not trying to beat this into your head. If you have been someone who's sat for most of your career, right? Say you travel into the city, you sit on a train, you go to work, you sit in the subway or a cab, or maybe you walk, and then you get to work, and then you sit for 8 hours, and then you hop on the train home and you're sitting, and then you come home and you're dead tired, and you sit for dinner. Most of your life is sitting. And maybe you do get some exercise in each week and each day, but if you start to think about what standing does by helping you diaphragmatic breathe, it's very hard to belly breathe when you're sitting. Your muscles aren't really on. I can't really breathe into my belly as much, right? That's why they coined the term sitting is the new smoking, right? What we're trying to say is, if you start incorporating some of these things, Ross was talking about his energy levels went down when he started sitting. Maybe you've been doing this for 20, 30 years, and you think that is what your normal energy level should be. It's false. That is not the truth. If you started incorporating some of these things, you're going to start to see your energy levels skyrocket, and you're going to be like, what is going on? How do I have all this energy? I can finally come home and play with my kids and get outside. I can finally do some housework that I've been wanting to do because I'm starting to incorporate all these things. It's not the supplements that's going to give you the energy. It's all this eating nutritious foods and vegetables. It's exercise and movement. It's breathing the right way. And maybe something as simple as getting a stand-up desk, right? So
I think, one of the things I hope everyone's starting to see is that you can habit stack a little bit. Basically meaning that you can take, I put mobility work with breath work, and they should always be incorporated together. But one of the things that I consciously do when I do my walks, I take like two walks a day, about a half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night. And I will consciously think about my breathing as I'm walking, relaxing the shoulders, diaphragmatic breathing, getting a good flow walk going, usually listening to music or another podcast or an audiobook, whatever it may be. But I'm stacking the habits together. I'm getting movement. I'm doing breath work. I'm also bringing in, new information, enlightenment, laughter, music. I'm taking myself out of the chaotic world that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And these, this goes a little more into the lifestyle part of it, but everything's intertwined. That's what we're kind of getting at. That one thing, everything works off of each other. So stack your habits a little bit. I mean, so we have the mobility and the breath work. We have baseline movement. So, the government recommends 30 minutes a day of, moderate to light exercise. And I think that's a great starting point to actually get a stopwatch going. It can be broken up. It could be 3 10-minute walks throughout the day, right? You could be just gardening for an hour, right?
You could be on a meeting and put your AirPods in or whatever headphones you have and go for a walk. We find, you might be more productive walking and talking than just sitting at your desk or kitchen table at home, being on the computer.
That's so true.
So, it could be overwhelming what we're talking about because it's a lot of things at once. And what Ross is saying is the way we incorporate a lot of these things is we start to habit stack. We start with one thing at a time, and then we work on to the next, and then we work on to the next. So maybe you start with, I'm going to stand for 2 hours today for work. And then you do it again the next week, you're doing for 4 hours. And all of a sudden you say, I'm going to buy a stand-up desk. Boom. That's going to help being on your feet. You're going to be moving more. You're going to be breathing a little bit better. You're going to say, now I'm going to start incorporating a walking phone call, right? Then you do your stand-up desk, your walking phone call. Then all of a sudden you're like, now I have more energy to cook a dinner that I've really been wanting to cook. And then you start incorporating healthy foods. Yeah. Right. So there's many different things. So the one thing we didn't talk about when it comes to nutrition, I know we're on exercise right now, was hydration, because that intertwines with both of those things. Hydration is super important. And one thing I will find is anyone I ever work with is dehydrated. It doesn't matter. I start automatically. They don't drink enough water. So how much water do you think an individual should be drinking on a daily basis?
This advice hasn't changed in forever. And the starting point is always going to be about half your body weight in ounces. So a 200-pound person would have 100 ounces, to keep it super simple. You can break that down into liters. You can break it down into, Yeti bottles. However you want to do it, just figure out the mathematical formula that works for your life and just do that as a starting point. And you can actually use, once again, not to do too much potty humor, but you can actually look at your urine to find out if you're well hydrated. And the easiest way to do it is if it's white, you're probably overhydrated. If it's dark yellow to almost brown, you better go get yourself a big glass of water immediately. If it's a light yellow, you're probably hanging pretty good.
Yeah.
But I would say take a couple days and just observe. So much of what we talk about is just bringing like a consciousness to what you're doing.
Being aware, yeah.
We're so mindless in how we make so many decisions throughout the day that we're not even conscious of because we're just on cruise control. We need to be conscious of certain things so we're aware if we're doing it right, if it's negatively affecting our health, if it's positively affecting our health. And once we get it into a good groove, yes, then put it into the maintenance stage where you don't have to think about it anymore. And I think we're probably in a maintenance stage with water. We're always drinking water. We always have a big a jug right near us. And I know that's not much of an issue anymore for me. But yeah, observe how your urine looks and, measure out what does it mean to get at least half your body weight in ounces. Now, if you do a little Peloton or you go for a run or if you have a hard interval, yeah, then you have to incorporate maybe a little bit more. If you have a high carb diet, that's going to give you more water. If you have something more like a keto diet, you're going to need to incorporate even more water.
And when Ross talks about high carb diet, we're talking about tons of vegetables, right?
Yeah.
He's saying if it's keto, it's more fats. All right. So now, great. We spoke about a bunch about nutrition. We incorporated more hydration. Now we're into movement. We're standing a little bit more, but we're breathing a little bit better. Let's get into cardiovascular and strength workouts or resistance workouts. How often? How much? How hard? How long? I mean, that's a little bit, he said, she said type thing, but that's what she said.
I think the starting point is always where you're at. Start there and maybe a little bit higher. So where are you at? If you were someone that was smashing the gym 6 days a week, hard circuits, cross that right over. Try to keep the presence of that routine in there. But if you're someone who's been inconsistent or has some level of regularity, just cross it over and start with your 2 days of lifting, 2 or 3 days of baseline cardio. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It just has to be doable. It has to be something that you're going to do.
So what Ross is saying, he does his two walks a day, right? So say you're someone who hasn't incorporated cardio in quite some time, in months, maybe years. Now's the perfect time. The weather's getting better out. You have a little bit more time now. You're getting cooped up inside. Incorporate some brisk walks. Walks are a great idea to increase that cardiovascular, right? So to get a little bit better. So maybe incorporating a brisk walk in the morning or at night. Love those. Resistance training, strength work. Incorporate 1 to 2 to 3 of those a day, 3 of those a week. Okay. And what does that mean? That means you need to have some form of progressive overload. So what is progressive overload?
Progressive overload, if you want me to take it from there, is just overwhelming your body week to week with a little bit more resistance, a little bit more volume.
And that's different for everyone, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean we need to be the mountain from
the 1,100 pound deadlift.
We don't an 1,100 pound deadlift. Okay.
Yeah.
That can mean we did 3 sets of 10 squats this week and we were really sore. And next week, guess what? We did 3 sets of 15. Totally fine. Yeah. That's progressive overload. And if you're someone who's been working out for some time, maybe you're someone who takes a boot camp class. Mind you, we have the Sweaty Health Boot Camp 4 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. But if you're someone who's been taking those types of classes and you're only been lifting, say, 5, 10 to 15 pounds forever, something needs to change in that format. Progressive overload needs to happen each week. So if you're doing the same exact thing week in and week out, there's no progressive overload there, right?
Yep.
That's something Ross and I see all the time. And I'm sure you have your take on why people do that or what people can do.
I want to pause a minute and just tie this all back to, the whole title of this podcast is, giving yourself a natural booster shot, right? So how does this incorporate into reducing inflammation in the body and boosting your immune system? Well, it incorporates like this. We know with exercise, cardio, and resistance, I'm going to kind of generalize them both in there.
Sure.
Your blood pressure is regulated. Your blood sugars are regulated. Your body gets strong. Lymphatic drainage happens when you stretch. Your mental state changes after exercise. All right. You could be super tense and worked up and stressed out. Your kids are driving you crazy because you're around them all the time. You find the time to just put in even a 20-minute circuit or go for that 30-minute walk, and your body automatically feels better. And this is something you can't ignore. If you've exercised before, you know it. And I would imagine that most of the people I'm saying this to right now on our podcast, they know this and they're hearing it again, and you need to hear it again. And I'm glad to bring it to you again.
It's that awareness.
It's something that you have to have. It's something you have to be conscious of, that when you get triggered and you're at this like state, you need to immediately change your state into a positive one. And physical movement through breath, through cardio, through resistance training, these are all fantastic ways to do it. Some work better for others, but just choose one and try to be active I really say every single day you should be active, especially if you're like us where we're not working right now. You have to be active every single day. You can't, maybe you could have a Sunday where you just crash out, but I say you really should be moving every single day. So by just keeping your body moving, you also release some good pro hormones to help your body regenerate and feel good. You know, it really comes down to, I think the only thing you don't want to do with exercise is just over exercise. You know, if you're sore for like 4 days, you might have went a little too hard because your body's not recovering from it, right?
Yeah.
Or if you haven't taken a 20-minute walk in 3 years and you decide to go into a 2-hour trail walk,
probably not your best bet. And that's something that, you know, we see a lot is, and I did a quick little post about it this week, is that, you know, if you haven't done something for so long and you come up for a breath of air, meaning you finally feel like you have the time and you try and figure it out and you do it for a little bit and it's too much to handle and you can't figure it out. And then you go back to your busy life and then the cycle starts again and you come up for a breath of air and you have some time and you try and figure out, and that health and fitness doesn't work out. It's totally okay to have someone else manage that part of your life and to help you get started, to hire a coach. We spoke about this last week on the podcast. It's okay to ask for help. Now, we're not going to get deep into that because that's not what this podcast today is about. It's about boosting your immune system. And Ross just spoke about all those different pillars that will help boost your immune system. And the last one we have is lifestyle. Now, I personally will say, when it comes down to it, is for me, sleep is so important. And I've been using a Whoop for a little bit now. I'm starting to really get into the deep depths of understanding how I sleep and what affects my sleep. And there's a lot of things that affect sleep. And what we're saying right now, when we're in this quarantine and we're in this routine of being in quarantine, is that if you're starting to go to bed later and still waking up at the same time, your whole sleep is going to be off. If you are drinking alcohol a little bit more often, your sleep is going to be off. If you're not staying hydrated, your sleep is going to be off. So all these things, and now once your sleep is off, your next day is affected by that. So that the sleep works with your lifestyle and how now all the habits that you have and, you know, the life that you're living right now. So all these things come together that will help start to boost your immune system. And if you kind of keep chipping away at them, I think slowly but surely, you're going to start to feel that energy come back or get more energy, and you're going to start to feel better about yourself. You're going to start to be happy. When we talk about lifestyle, it's okay to not care about health for a little bit, right? Ross spoke about in the beginning, 80 to 90% in terms of nutrition. And let's talk about 80 to 90% of just not thinking about nutrition or fitness and just having fun, right?
Yeah. Sleep is the ultimate recovery. It's the rebooting of the body. I forget if I might have these flipped, but in the early stages of the night, it's a physical recovery. In the later stages of the night toward the early morning, it's a mental recovery. And you need both of these phases to happen. So while we talk about time, 7 to 9 hours, 6 to 9 hours applies to 90 to 95% of the population.
I still think 6 is even too low.
Yeah, it is probably for most. I think somewhere in the 7 to 8 hours applies to 80% of the
Yeah.
population. So yeah, we always recommend 7 to 8 hours is really the ideal amount of sleep you want to have, but it can be relative. More importantly, like what you're saying, is the quality of the sleep, right? So you might meet people who genuinely sleep 6 hours, they wake up ready to go, they go to sleep super tired. They sleep their solid six. They're healthy individuals because their routine is so locked up and so solid. And if you
Yeah.
threw that Whoop strap on their wrist, it might back it up. Now, I also think a lot of those people are somewhat of outliers because our bodies are amazing at dealing with whatever our mental toughness can tell us to do. So just because you've slept 6 hours for 20 years doesn't mean it's ideal if you have high blood pressure, you're 40 pounds overweight, things like that. So keep in mind with sleep, it's about quality. It's about doing everything you possibly can to ensure good quality sleep. Keep it between 7 and 8 hours. Try to get the routine going. That's so important. And if I had to add anything, just me personally, if I had to add anything to lifestyle, because I mean, Scott, seriously, we go on for an hour,
Oh,
another 2 hours on this.
yeah.
I would say take time every single day to laugh. And, we're all going and watching more Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and all these different things. And we're watching, a lot of the shows I hear people watching are just like, man, downers. And there's, drug
Killing.
cartels
Yeah.
and there's, people being blown apart. I'm like, oh, I can't take this. Watch something funny. Call up your funniest friend and go for that walk and talk to them and laugh for a half an hour straight. Watch some comedy specials. I'm such a huge fan of following comedians on Instagram because you get little snacks of laughter throughout the course of the day. Laugh. This boosts your immune system. This makes you feel good. This energizes your body. And in summary, think of this as a whole, commitment to a lifestyle that's, it's not about boosting your immune system. It's just about living a lifestyle that makes you feel good. That's energizing. That gives you, doesn't take away from you.
And if you're getting anything from this, and I hope you're starting to realize is that this isn't just a immune boosting shot. This is a life boosting shot that's going to bring you so much more energy and benefit to the rest of your life rather than just now in this quarantine. Right? So we spoke about all these things: exercise, gut health, nutrition, lifestyle. And these are all the main pillars that will help with boosting your immune system. But they're also the same exact things that we talk to our clients about in terms of staying healthy, or in terms of losing weight or gaining muscle, or, all these other things that people ask us all the time about. These are the main pillars that we talk about with our, high paying clients.
Yeah. And, I want to thank all the people that are listening to this, all our listeners. And I want to encourage you guys too. Send us questions, DM us on Instagram, Facebook, any modality you like. And just give us your questions, because we're putting just some good content out there. We're not trying to be conspiracy theories about this. And the crazy thing is you'll make a lot of noise, but you're not getting the point across if everything has to be controversial in what you're saying. What we want to do is bust some myths on traditional thinking. Just teach people that the path of the healthy life is always going to be a good solution to keeping yourself in better health, and and especially in a time where we are right now. Like I don't have stress over when I have to go to the grocery store. I put on the mask, I put on my gloves, I do what I got to do, I come out of there. There's no fear. There's no fear associated with this, because I know I'm doing everything I possibly can to keep my health in the right state. Yeah. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about you. It's getting you to understand what you need to do to keep you healthy. It's not general information. We want to make it specific to you. And that's why we talk about how one man's food could be another man's poison, but how there are general truths to certain things. And we kept this one really positive, because there's a lot of stuff that can actually take away from your immune system, but we're trying to focus on
all the good
what is good for you,
Yeah.
right?
So today we started with a little, I guess an unpopular truth or a myth. And we're going to start to do that a little bit more often at the beginning of every podcast. So we'll always start with something like that. We'll get into our topic, and then we're always going to finish with questions asked through social media. So what we're going to ask you guys, like Ross just did, is DM us. We'll put it on our stories. We'll put on our polls, and we'll try and answer some questions that you guys send in. We've already got a bunch, but we're going to kind of sift through what we think is the most important for you guys to hear, and we'll start getting those in towards the end of the podcast. So if you guys see us on social media, make sure you follow us. Follow Ross at RossFitza, me at Scott_Strat, and at The Sweaty Health. And send us some questions. We will be sure to answer those. And we hope you enjoy this podcast, the Sweaty Health Podcast, and you will find us at the beginning of every week. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have a great week. And Ross, any last words?
Sure. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, no matter what modality you're on, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Just so you don't have to think about it. So it'll just be waiting for you, and each week you can get a little infusion of some good healthy tips.
Of course. And you know what? Let us know you're listening. So take a screenshot of your phone, put it on your Instagram story, and tag us. And we'll be sure to repost that and show you guys some love. And we really appreciate it. Share us and give us some likes. Thank you.